Hello, everyone. We are back today with another episode of The Journey Within. I am your host, Andrea Escobar Logreda, spiritual guide and intuitive. I'm so excited about today's episode. As you guys know, each week we get to connect with different healers, storytellers, vision holders as they walk us through their journey within their dark night of the soul experience and how they transformed either a rock bottom or something that wasn't the best into literally magic. I am really, really excited to present today's guest, Jessica Bates. She is not only a wonderful mother, wife, just incredible soul altogether. She is also the founder of Mother Hemp Company. They are local here in Colorado. I am particularly partial to them since I'm from living here, and I love supporting local companies. We're going to talk all about Jessica's upbringing today, her journey, how Moon Mother came about, and what it's like navigating a business, a family, and life, because I know that there's a lot of moms out there wanting support on that. So welcome, Jessica. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to connect with you today.
Oh, thank you, dude. This is so awesome. I'm a huge, huge fan of your company. So it's really, really cool being able to connect with you and have you on the series. So before we start and we dive into your upbringing and kind of all of that, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself so that everyone can kind of get a little bit of an idea on who you are and what you're doing in this beautiful planet of ours.
Sure. So I'm Jessica Bates. I am, first of all, a woman here in the world, just finding my way, just like anybody else. I'm a mother of two girls, 4 and 7, Clover and Juniper. I love them dearly. Motherhood has been the most amazing role that I've ever played in this world, and also the most challenging. Anybody who's a parent knows that it's the most challenging role that you can possibly take on. I am the founder of Mother Hemp Company, just like you just said, and Mother Hemp Company was born out of a love not only for cannabis, but also for herbal medicine in general. I am a certified clinical herbalist, and I have had a focus on new family and women's health, new family wellness and women's health, all through my career, and have been a postpartum doula. And so weaving all of that herbalist knowledge, wise woman knowledge all together in new family wellness and postpartum care has been really a really big part of my life and a big part of my identity. And so transitioning out of the care provider space and more into an organizational role and a leadership role in this community and in my company has been an amazing journey, a really great and big piece of my growth path. And it's been really exciting and really amazing being able to bring this company from farmers market, small community status to national and global presence. It's been really amazing. It's been a really challenging and fun exercise in just the way I show up in the world. And so it's been really, really exciting.
Wow, that is so awesome. I love that. That's something that you can really see in the company, the products, your love, and it's almost like you're giving a piece of your passion to people every time that they buy something from Moon Mothers. At least that's what I feel.
Absolutely. There's not a single customer that buys one little product that has some kind of story or some kind of review that doesn't absolutely touch my heart. I read every single one of the reviews still. I communicate personally with a lot of our customers for customer service still. I mean, obviously we have a customer service team, but it's like giving a small piece of my soul. All of the formulas were created by me, and then some of them were created by me, some of them were created via download, and they didn't come from me, they came through me. But still they were created of my hands and of my soul. And so being able to bring that to my community has been really amazing, and seeing the impact that cannabis medicine has had on so many people's lives, and just our products, not just cannabis, but our products, and watching people with these amazing stories that they have about the way that these products have changed their lives has been just really, really, really heartwarming. And it's basically everything.
I was about to ask you, I'm sure that that right there, they're just anytime that you hear someone like, oh my God, you helped me so much with X, Y, Z or whatever, it has to make all of the hardships that we all go through when we're running a business worth it, because you're like, you know what, who cares? I made a difference. I was able to help someone. I was able to offer them support or something like that, which is so beautiful.
Absolutely. And it's funny that you bring that up, because whenever things get hard for me, whenever I'm having a really hard day at work, or just the weight of running a business starts to kind of bear down on me, I will actually go to our reviews. I'll go to our reviews and I'll kind of scroll through the way that we're making an impact, to just remind myself of, okay, this is why we're here. This is why we're doing what we're doing. And it will literally just change my day. It'll turn my day around, because then all of a sudden I'm like re-inspired to show up, and re-inspired to create new products, re-inspired to show up in a better way, and show up in the way that this business is calling upon me for.
Dude, I love that. I love that. That's so awesome, because it shows just how connected you are to your business. And sometimes people are like, wait, are they still that connected as they were at the beginning? And that's something I can say that I see through and through with your company. It's you. Like, I don't think it's ever going to get, like, even 10 years down the line, I don't think I'm going to be like, oh no, this is Melissa. It's like, who's Melissa? No, like, you through and through, you're like, no, this is Jessica's, this is family. Like, you can just feel that warmth through kind of everything, from Instagram to the website to just, it's funny, I was at Natural Grocers earlier, and I'm like, someone was buying one of your products. I'm like, I'm interviewing the owner today. And they looked at me and they're like, should I get it? I'm like, oh my God, best thing ever. Not getting paid for this. And she's like, really? I've never used CBD before. And I'm like, no, seriously, it's amazing. Women owned. Like, you're going to want to support this company. And she grabs the salts. It's what she was using. She was grabbing the salts. She's like, wow, I'm really, really intrigued. What do you recommend I do? And I'm like, wait, no, go online. I don't know. You're like, follow the directions. I got like very caught up. I'm like, I don't work for her. I just think you should buy it. But it was hilarious, because my mom passes by and she's like, are you here promoting things? And I'm like, maybe, I don't know.
A little bit.
Who knows? Came here to buy something, but I'll promote stuff.
I love it so much. Thanks for the plug.
Oh man, no, I do. I'm going to throw in this like slight little plug that PS not getting paid for or anything. I think it was probably like 2 years ago that I first discovered you guys, and it was through, first it was the CBD tinctures and your cinnamon CBD tincture. Please, like, anyone, I'm not doing matcha right now since I'm not doing caffeine, but if you love matcha, it is the best thing ever. All you need is some alternative milk, matcha, and your CBD cinnamon.
I have not had it in matcha before. That actually sounds really, really, really good.
Girl, my God. Or my mom puts it into her energy bites, and just it plays good with the cinnamon, because I was just like, but what I was going to say was, I struggle with CBD doesn't have THC. I normally don't. I mean, it could also be a placebo effect. I don't know. But I normally don't have anything. And I stopped consuming everything while I was trying your CBD, because I just wanted to be like, all right, let me just full on take everything off and be real honest about this. And my sleep improved without anything else. I went off THC, everything else, every other products for about 2 weeks. And they did, my sleep really, really did improve, which is really awesome. So definitely, if you've been curious and after you finish this interview, you're like, all right, feel like I want to get into it, try it out.
Yeah, like the cinnamon is actually the one that I take. I like the natural and I like the cinnamon. Peppermint is certainly the best seller because I think that you know, people will buy something that they feel really is very familiar, or if they are going to buy something for a family member or a friend, they'll go to the peppermint because people feel a lot of times like, oh, peppermint's a safe bet, you know, so people will buy the peppermint.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's
I
very
No, it is. I like peppermint. I'm not gonna lie, but I feel like for me, peppermint, this is the struggle. This is the struggle. This is the problem I encounter. Then I'm like, I need chocolate. And then it turns into, can I just eat chocolate and then call it healthy and wellness because I'm putting CBD on here? So that's where
And what's interesting is the cinnamon actually gives an effect of sweet.
that's why. Okay, so it wasn't just me. Okay, I
No,
always thought, all right.
just the cinnamon with the MCT oil, it actually gives a sensation of it being like a treat. I mean, and that's just because I don't really consume sugar that often. So I think for me, things like that will seem sweet.
Okay, that was I think that's why I loved it so much. And I'm like, no, I feel
It's like
like
a treat.
it is, and I didn't know why. And then side note, if you ever, I don't do it anymore, but when I used to work in sales, I would carry a jar of almond butter with me and your cinnamon CBD. And anytime I wanted just something like to relax and eat, I would dip a spoonful, put a dropper full, mix it, and just stick it in my mouth.
Wow,
But
that's
it tastes, no, it's like
good.
almost like snickerdoodle cookies. That's where I was going
Yes.
with. This is gonna turn into me literally telling you all the ways I've used your tinctures, and you're gonna be like, okay, didn't get to interview you.
So much. I love it so much. I'm down for that. But I'll share with you guys about my childhood and when you're ready to hear for it.
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna go ahead and pivot. We'll jump back into all of the mother products, but take us to your childhood, where you grew up, how that has played a role in who you are now, and I'm gonna like sneak in there when your relationship with cannabis started. Did it start a lot younger, or are we talking more older?
Yep, I'm gonna take you there. So I actually it's really interesting that we're talking about this. I don't often talk about my childhood or my past or my history. But I'm here to share it with you. My children, their dad has been talking to them a lot about his childhood, and he had a great childhood, tons and tons of fun. You know, he grew up in a really wholesome, supportive family with a lot of fun. And he's always telling them all these great stories about his childhood. And I had a semi-traumatic childhood, and it's not something that I talk about very often. And they're asking me a lot about it now. They're looking to me for my stories. They've enjoyed his so much that they want mine. And I have a handful of joyful stories that I remember and that I'm happy to share with them. I have about a handful of them. And I was telling my oldest daughter something the other night, and she's like, oh yeah, you already told me that story. Tell me a new one. And I'm like, that might be my last one. You know, and I'm sure that I'm sure that there are a ton more joyful stories that I don't remember. But my mom, actually, we were just talking about this before you turned the recording on, but my mom was one of those moms who was a single mother for a long time, and she, you know, she did an amazing job. She did the best that she could for us. And she was one of those moms who did have to go to like food pantries, and you know, she did as best as she could, providing for us as such a young mother. But she had my brother when she was 20, and my brother and I are 18 months apart. She was a very young mother. my biological father was a drug addict, and they split at some point. It's the story is a little bit fuzzy about how it all went down. And my my mom was a single mom for a while. She remarried someone who was um, an emotionally abusive train wreck of a person, and married him, stayed with him for as long as it took to really destroy all of us, essentially. And then we all, she divorced him. We all kind of regrouped after that, and it was just, it was like a traumatic experience. All of it, my childhood just being, not having this like normal childhood experience, having to grow up really quickly, having to grow up emotionally and also kind of physically. In order to support my mother through her through being a single parent, my brother and I had to kind of grow up. We had to like do chores. We had to pull our weight. We had to help out. It was, we didn't get the luxury of having our laundry done for us until, I was hauling laundry baskets at age 6 and like doing all my own laundry and helping out. And honestly, and I'm going to get to this part about how all of this was actually a blessing. And you're going to think for a long time that, obviously this is all hardships, and we never want to see kids go through these stages, and we never want to see kids go through these kinds of experiences. But when I look back on what I went through as a child, I know that all of that is what made me who I am today. And so I'm grateful. I'm always grateful for these experiences. Looking back, and I guess you don't have any choice kind of looking back. You can either be sad or have it, totally wreck you or whatever. But for me, I look back thinking like, wow, all of that has made me who I am. So long story short, my mom's married a third time to another person, great person, but then at this point I am a full-fledged adult. You know what I mean? I'm like an adult 11-year-old person. And in like an 11-year-old's body, and so at this point I'm skeptical, and I'm thinking this is just another scenario. This isn't going to work out. And so I've always been one of these, since birth, I've always been one of these people where I'm extremely strong emotionally. I am pretty independent and really outspoken. And I've always been kind of here on this planet for truth. And so when things don't sit right with me, I'm usually sharing my voice about it. Like, hey, this isn't right. This isn't working. And I think as a child, we tend to kind of a lot of families, especially in that time and before that time, parents would really gaslight their children, would really say like, no, everything is fine. You're fine. Like everything is fine. And for me, I would always say like, hey, this isn't fine. This isn't working. And like, and just kind of always be speaking my voice. And as someone who's continuously trying to work through things like that, instead of sweeping them under the rug, I was always kind of like the black sheep of the family. I was always speaking my mind. I was always trying to get to the bottom of things. And I was always, doing like kind of like a call out consistently about things that weren't working. And so this was something that I grew up with, just kind of being on the outskirts of the family for so long. And it's funny because I still kind of am, but not in the same way. I found cannabis at age 13, very, very early. I had my first cannabis experience. I was out with a friend. We met some other friends at the park, and someone had a joint. We smoked it. It took us like 2 hours to walk 5 minutes away. We were dying laughing, cracking up. And I used cannabis throughout my teen years to really kind of soothe the trauma from my childhood. And although my family was in a better position. There wasn't a lot of like recognizing what had happened. They were kind of like, okay, well, things are better now, so let's move on. And obviously, anybody who's been in traumatic experiences, anybody who knows anything about healing, knows that you have to actually honor the experience, see and feel it, and then heal it. You can't heal things without actually going there. And so it was a long time until I actually started my true healing journey. But through my teen years, I leaned heavily on cannabis in order to really have the emotional healing effects, in order to expand my mind, and in order to really find joy, because cannabis can really help you find that joy. It can really help you have a lot of fun, but also just this aspect of expanding my mind so much, because where people don't want to go, you're able to go there. People, a lot of times people don't want to go there, here or there or whatever, but with cannabis you can just lay back and kind of go wherever you want. You can play with your mind, you can go into all of the many crevices, you can go wherever it is that you want to go in your mind, and a lot of times then people are open to all different experiences as well when they're on cannabis. And so it was a lot of fun expanding through cannabis during my teen years, and finding joy and finding that medicine that and just finding that home there with cannabis that was truly transformative for me. And then I didn't start my true emotional healing process until I was in my 20s, and I started seeing a healer and start really working through everything that had happened before. And it was an amazing journey of really going deep into all of the traumatic experiences, really feeling them, and really going there. And I think, and during that time, I took a break from cannabis in order to really kind of go as deep as I needed to go, and really feel all the feelings without anything kind of soothing it. And so it's been a really interesting journey with cannabis, because so for me, during my teen years, I used it a ton for recreation, and not really recognizing the medicinal aspects of it until I was in my late 20s. Fast forward to my late 20s, I'm a certified clinical herbalist. I'm working in a practice as an herbalist and as a postpartum doula, really recognizing the medicinal aspects of the plant. Then it really hits home for me, and I start thinking about the experience of recreational cannabis being medicinal as well. My personal experience with recreational cannabis, how I used it through my teens to find joy, but how that was medicine. That was medicine for me. Finding joy through cannabis is medicine. Finding the soothing aspect for my trauma through cannabis recreationally was medicine. And so it's been a really interesting journey. It was kind of up and down for me, but it wasn't until the point where I actually wasn't even using cannabis recreationally that I started to think about the recreational use being medicinal. And so it's just very interesting. And it's been a really interesting journey through my life, and how cannabis has been there the entire time, since my very, very, very early teens, and has been there for me as kind of like a guidepost, as and a mind expander. And it's been interesting in my family life, because all throughout my teens, it was very, cannabis was closing a lot of doors for me. And cannabis was doing this kind of thing where, so if I were to get in trouble for cannabis, I would, opportunities would be closed for me, including the fact that I didn't graduate from high school because of cannabis. I was in a series of events that led me to get in trouble from cannabis possession, cannabis consumption, etc. And then later, looking back again, I'm realizing, okay, cannabis has kept me on my path this whole time, and those closed doors were opportunities that were not for me. And just realizing also as an adult person with a successful business in the cannabis industry, I look back at my journey, and I look back at all of the naysayers, essentially those people in my family, my parents, my community members, the final decision maker from my high school that said, hey, like, we're going to expel you. I think back on that a lot these days and think, like, I was onto something then. And basically the societal restrictions that we had in place, and still in my hometown, it's very conservative there, and they're still really anti-cannabis, and it's still really crazy there. But for me, I was always on that journey, and cannabis closed doors for me that weren't for me, and opened doors for me that were 100% for me. And it's really interesting now because now that we have moved more away from the THC side of cannabis cultivation and the cannabis industry, now that we're on the CBD side, it's funny how quickly people will shift their thinking about the business that you have. And I like to take the time to remind people that CBD and the science around cannabis was all created by outlaws and criminals. And so, just because it comes in a really pretty box and a really pretty packaging and it's now accepted, it's important to remember that this like whitewash version of the cannabis industry, and not that CBD isn't helping so many people, and it's such a modality of getting cannabis education and cannabis information into the hands of, and cannabis healing into the hands of so many people. But it is so many people are seeing it as like a separate thing, but CBD is cannabis, and the cannabis industry has been fought for by so many people along the way. And this really whitewashed version of the cannabis industry has been produced on the backs of so many people who are still incarcerated for cannabis consumption and cannabis possession along the way. And so, although a lot of people are seeing it as a really separate thing, it's not separate at all. The cannabis plant is a sacred plant to our bodies and to our into this planet, and so, and probably beyond this planet, is what I've heard and what I think as well. But it's so interesting to me how the dynamic around CBD has really changed people's opinions of me. All of a sudden, like a grower and a weed dealer is now a CEO. And, and I always like to just kind of remind people that, yeah, I'm the same person who was selling bags like back when I was 17, I'm like, don't forget it. Like, it's the same plant. It's bred for different genetics, it's bred for a different cannabinoid profile, but it's the same plant. It's sacred to us. It's sacred to our bodies. It's sacred to our healing. And cannabis and I are like this and always will be. THC, CBD, all of the cannabinoids. And so it's just really interesting, and just seeing myself being really true to the plant. My husband and I, the reason that we got into CBD in the first place was because of this aspect where not only could we, bring the cannabis plant outdoors. Obviously in Colorado, we have been cultivating indoor THC cannabis because that's the rules. And in order to roll back our carbon footprint, we brought the plant outside in its natural element. And so it's been really amazing journey to kind of watch cannabis grow in its natural element and all of the different messages that we've been receiving along the way from the cannabis plant. So not only were we able to really roll back our carbon footprint and really still continue to cultivate the cannabis plant, but in a way that resonates more with our true hearts and with the environment, but also B, we are able to really have a voice about cannabis out here in the world at a national and global level, because our commitment is to the plant. And so just finding this way where we can bring cannabis medicine and cannabis education to the masses has been such an important thing for us. These are the reasons why we got into the CBD industry to begin with, and these are the reasons that I personally think that we have been so successful, because our mission is always education, and our mission is always to stay true to the plant.
My God, I have so many, I want to go in so many directions right now. First of all, thank you for honoring her as a whole. I think that's something that I definitely, my inner child wanted to throw tantrums. When the hemp farm, when the farm bill was passed, it was awesome. But I just kept seeing, I'm like, cool. So now you're saying you love CBD, but you're bashing the plant. And I remember having a conversation with someone. I'm like, that's like, I tell you, I love you, but I hate your personality. So can I get rid of your personality? And people didn't understand that. And I go back to, it's like saying, hey, cow, I want your milk, but I don't want you. You can't have CBD while not taking the entire plant into consideration. So thank you so much for just acknowledging that.
Absolutely. And it's more than that, our government and our overall society around cannabis, and specifically the government, they're not so much accepting CBD and excited about it as they are wanting to regulate and make money on it. And this is a plant that is a true companion plant to our bodies and to our well-being. It's becoming more and more obvious through our understanding of the endocannabinoid system and the way that our bodies work directly with cannabinoids and the way that the plant works directly with our body. It's becoming more and more clear across the board that this is the companion plant to our bodies. Supplementing with cannabinoids has changed so many people's lives and opening people up to so many different ideas around medical autonomy that it's just amazing. But the truth is that this plant shouldn't even be regulated in any way. We don't need the government to tell us what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. We don't need anybody telling us what's good for me and what's not good for me. It's I think that people should be able to make their own decisions about what kind of plants they want to consume. And there's not a single certifying body or regulatory organization on this planet that's going to tell me otherwise. And it's a mission of mine to make sure that I get out there and educate people on it. It's one of the things that we do at the Mother Hemp Company, because we don't provide any THC-free products. And people ask us all the time, oh, we need a THC. I would prefer a THC-free item. And so it's been our mission to continue to educate people and break down those barriers around THC and really break down the stigma around THC, so that people will start to understand how the whole plant works in your body and all of the cannabinoids are working together at the maximum benefits and maximum absorption in your body. And so it's really interesting how this CBD molecule has become so exciting in our greater community here, but people are forgetting that CBD is cannabis. Like cannabis is producing these amazing cannabinoids, amazing terpenes, and amazing therapeutic benefits for us. And so just that education piece has been so important.
I think that's where we really need to, I think, come together more, is that education piece. And I don't mean it in there's a lot of people, and just like you're doing your part to educate. The sad part is, just like with pharma and other industries, we're having people jumping in that don't necessarily care about education. They're just in it to make money. And if you're listening, I love you, but go find somewhere else, because you're not helping anything. And it's more of just in the sense that if you're trying to make a quick money from cannabis, you're not actually in it for the plant and what the plant has to offer. And I say this because, and you touched on this a little bit, we want to talk about how cannabis is recreational and it's this fun thing. And it's like, dude, the truth is you're using it to heal something, whether you're aware of it or not. And I love when people are like, no, it makes me tired. Maybe you need to sleep. No, it makes me paranoid. Maybe you're paranoid and that's why you're getting paranoid. Like, I truly think the plant offers you what you're not wanting to see. And you touched on this at the beginning, and it is this almost invitation to be able to process through emotions that might feel a lot more rougher if you're not, under the influence. But it's not like, I don't like when people compare it to alcohol, but I'm going to throw in the comparison now. It's not like when you're drunk and you just forget about what's going on. Like, I can't, I mean, it might have happened. I don't know. I don't like count how much I'm consuming every time, but I'm here and I can also tell you exactly what happened, and I can go and file my taxes. And if you want me to go and do math for you, I'm all for it. Will I want to like read a scientific book? Probably not. I want to
Depends
like,
on personality.
it depends on my personality. Like sometimes I have a really good friend who laughs because anytime that we're around people, they're like, oh, do you smoke? You might want to see what vibe she's under. And people are like, why? Well, if she's feeling like she wants to talk to people, she will totally talk. But if not, she'll probably grab a book and just like isolate herself. And unless like you've been in my space enough, you're like, oh my God, you really do just grab a book and go to your, and I'm like, yeah, it depends on how I'm feeling. If I'm like in a really, let's connect, I want to chat, then I'm all for it. But there's other times where I'm like, I've been talking to a lot of people. I want to go inward and I just want to sit here. And half the time I'm just staring at a book. And if you come and talk to me, I have no idea what the book says. And I'm just like in my head. So what do you think? And it's just that introspection, but I don't think that's brought up enough. There's this like, again, the stigma that TV plays. Like I always laugh. I'm like, I don't think that happened since I was 16, but please educate me on how my experience is going to be when I smoke. But that's what you're seeing. You're seeing someone that can't, they're not here. They're not. So it's a lot being thrown at us, but it's such an individual experience. And it goes back to, it's going to work with you. It's not going to work with the community. It's going to work individually with you, and everyone's going to have a different experience. And I think that's the beauty in it, not that like you can't plan, if that makes sense.
It does. And I think also to touch on what you're speaking about, I think that there are so many different strains, and the more we get to know this particular plant, and the more we get to know the strains, the terpenes, the cannabinoid profile, and the way that these individual plant profiles work within our bodies, I think the more that we can kind of nail down what types of cannabis is going to be good for us in the moment. And so I was on I was listening to someone speak a few years ago, and it really kind of blew my mind because they were saying, okay, when you're not feeling well and you want to use cannabis, grab a few different types and smell them. And whatever smells the best to you in the moment, that's going to be the one that's going to be the most healing for you in the moment. And so I've been personally using that that method to figure out exactly what cannabis strain is going to be the best for me in the moment, and what's going to be the most healing for what I need right now, and what kind of what strain is going to have the best effect for me in this moment.
Oh, I love that. I
And so
mean, it makes sense, with the terpenes and all of that. Like, it definitely does. But it's such a basic way to just say you don't have to dive into anything. Just sniff yourself and kind of see what what vibes with you.
it does, and there's so much new science around cannabis, and obviously there's so much still to learn. But I think the more we know about the way that the cannabinoids are working within our bodies, the way that cannabinoid ratios are working in our bodies, the way specific terpene profiles and terpene profile, the ratios are working, the more we can kind of avoid those paranoid places, the more we can avoid, there are other tools to use, like pairing more CBD with THC to bring down those kind of negative aspects, or like negative reactions that some people can have to THC along the way. But in order for us to use this plant properly, I think the more we know, the better.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Absolutely.
No, definitely agree with you on that. It's you hit on it. I feel like we're still just like skimming through. There's still so much to learn.
We are still so in our infancy, in education and knowledge about the cannabis plant. So there's still so much to learn, and we're so excited. Everyone who's working at our company is so excited about the up and coming science and understanding that we have about cannabis and how it works in our bodies.
That's so awesome. I'm glad that you're as a company, it's something that you're very passionate about, just keeping that mainstream throughout. So kind of going on with that, I know that your husband, while you were an herbalist, he was already in the cannabis industry.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
you were kind of like, hey, I have this idea. Let's kind of I have like a couple on there. Like on his end, he's already in the industry. So he's already like facing all of the stuff that's going on. And now you want to get involved before it's legal, before we're like, oh yeah, CBD is amazing and all of this. How did you guys, like, how were you able to merge both visions together? Because he's already doing his own thing and you're coming with your own kind of viewpoint. And then on top of that, your husband and wife. So starting like that process of a business, a lot of people would be like, dude, you're crazy. Don't do that. Like, keep it separate. You're gonna, how did you guys manage that?
So that was, of course, his initial reaction when I said, "Hey, let's do something totally different. Let's partner with a local farm here. Let's grow some hemp, and let's get into the CBD industry." Um, and initially, he was like, "No way." No way. I'm not taking on another project. I like where I am. I love what I do. And the more that I started to kind of like explain my reasoning behind it, and, tell him like, hey, I want to reach people on a national level, and we can do that with CBD. I want to make CBD products for people that are high quality, that that are infused with other medicinal herbs. You know, I want to bring cannabis plant therapeutics to as many people as possible, and I want to bring cannabis outside. You know, the more that I started to really kind of convey my vision to him, the more on board he became. And because he and I are so very aligned in our passions and in the initiatives that are dear to our heart, and obviously our love for the planet and our love for our community, he, as a medical care provider, a cannabis medical care provider for people, he as a cannabis cultivator, and me as a certified clinical herbalist, our passions are our passions are for caring for people. And so it wasn't so out of left field that we were going to you know, make plant medicine for people in our community. All of a sudden we're just doing it together, and I'm not going to lie, it has been challenging. It's been extremely challenging, you know, just kind of like setting boundaries. What's home, what's work, when everything is home and work. Finding time to be at work and at home has I would say been the biggest challenge. You know, our two little kids, they don't want to hear us talk work talk. They don't want to hear us talk shop 24/7. And as business owners who love what we do and who are very excited, we always want to talk about it. And so we've had to really, and then, you know, there comes a point where you don't want to talk about it anymore. You want to talk about, you know, you want to talk about anything but work. And so as a couple, we've had to really set time boundaries around like when are work hours and when are home hours, and when it's acceptable to talk about work and when it's not. And so that piece, when we really got that down, it's been that's been a game changer for us as a couple. And also really kind of figuring out like who's going to do what, who's in charge of what roles are we playing, and when it comes down to it, what is you know, what's the end goal, and how are we going to get there. And so creating that map of kind of like who's in charge of what are everyone's roles, how are we going to work together, and how are we going to work separate to get it all done. You know, we spent the first year and a half of our business not really having that map. And so we were kind of, everyone was doing everything, and, you know, we were working together a ton. And then finally we were like, okay, for the sake of our own health, the business, the marriage, everything, we've got to map it out. So we kind of did things a little bit backward than a lot of companies and businesses will do. A lot of times you'll start with a business plan. You'll start with this map of, you know, the success map or whatever. But we just went all in initially, and everything kind of snowballed for us. So it all happened so quickly that we didn't even have time to kind of breathe and create that plan. We were just doing. And so being able to slow down a little bit and start to map all of that out and figure out how, you know, like, okay, so now that we've been doing everything for the last year and a half, we know who's good at what. So let's and who's not good at what. So let's map it out. Let's assign the roles, and that's been an amazing kind of benefit, I would say, for us of COVID. So initially when everything was closed, we had a slow down period, which was also a reorganization period for our company. We were able to slow down enough to really take a look at the entire organization and see what was working and what wasn't, and then restructure based on that. And it was, and now that things are opening again, and now that the pressure has kind of let up a little bit from 2020, we're able to move forward more clearly, and it's much more of a healthy dynamic for us than it was initially.
I'm so glad you touched on like the boundaries and really needing to implement those. But it also shows people that you don't have to have a plan when you start something, that if you're aligned to your vision and you're sticking true to yourself, like things work out. Because a lot of people could have been like, dude, you guys are crazy. You're gonna, ruin everything. But it totally worked because you were both so passionate about what you were doing and really in it for the same reasons, not just like you have your reasons, he has his, and not being able to come in the middle for that.
Sure, absolutely. And again, my husband is still in, he's, we know our roles. Obviously, I love plants, love growing plants. I love being on the farm as much as possible.
Mhm.
But he has more experience in cultivating cannabis. He has, it's more of a specialty for him than it is for me. And I have more of an organizational piece about me and a leadership quality. So, I'm leading the team here, and he's tending to the plants, which has been um, such a great way to work together. And we love to kind of cross over. 2019, the only dates we ever went on were to the greenhouse. We had work dates where we both went to the greenhouse, and it was, we worked together at the greenhouse, planting seeds, tending to the plants, planting cover crops, whatever it was that we were doing. We were doing it at the greenhouse, and we were doing it together, and it was really amazing. And so sometimes we like to help each other out, and sometimes we have to, but sometimes we like to because it's obviously tending to the plants and being with the plants is a huge joy of mine. And it just actually sitting with the plants brings so much healing and so many messages that need to be heard from the earth, from the plant, from the ethers. And so it's a huge passion of mine, and I wish that I could spend more time there, but I know in my heart that when the plants are being tended by him, that he's doing an amazing job, and that he's there holding space for them to do their own thing.
That's so beautiful. You're both able to kind of um, do what really lets you both light up, and you're able to recognize, okay, this is what he likes, this is what I like, but we can still kind of move back and forth, which is awesome. But you're still allowing each other to really shine in the roles that kind of align with both of you best. That's
Yeah,
so awesome.
absolutely.
So I'm gonna dive a little bit into the family, because this is a question that I've had for moms I'm just curious as to, you have two kids. They're still young, so they're not aware enough to be like, oh, cannabis can be bad. There's so much out there. Have you guys talked about how you're gonna navigate that when they're older? Because I mean, your first experience was when you were 13, and I know that's something that my grandpa, ironically, I'm like, why of all people, you're the one that cares the most. He's like, what are you going to tell your kids? How are you going to explain this to them? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just going to say, hey, you know how we like to plant mint? This is the same thing.
Absolutely. And that's so, obviously we've been in cannabis cultivation since before they were born, and they've grown up around the cannabis plant, but they have also grown up around us cultivating all types of plants. We always, indoor plants, outdoor plants, we're always tending to plants, some of which are medicinal, some of which are not. And the kids are very involved in growing their own food. They're very involved in growing their own medicines. We make medicines at our home from the plants from our yard, wild crafted plants from cultivated plants that we've grown. And so the way that we've really approached it to date is that some plants are external use only. Some plants are internal use only. Some plants are nutritive and can be taken daily. Some plants are only for when you're sick, and they're very powerful medicine. And some plants are, and some forms of medicine are strictly for adults, and some are for kids. And that's the way we've kind of approached it. to date, and the way that we've really approached like cannabis medicine is more in that this plant is medicinal for adults, unless you're a child who needs it. And there are certain circumstances in which children need this plant, and they need access to it. But that's been our approach so far, and we haven't formally touched on it because it's not, it just doesn't seem necessary. We want them to grow up in a way where they're thinking that cannabis is just as normal as calendula, or it's just as normal as comfrey, or whatever, whatever medicinal plant it is that we're growing. It has its place just like the rest of the herbs. Obviously it's a very powerful plant. But our children are, they're still really little, like you said, and so we haven't formally touched on it. And I think that there will become a time where we will have to touch on it. It's interesting because my kids are at home right now, and they're homeschooling with us. They were in a Waldorf school before, but I was driving either to work or home from work or something the other day, and I was thinking about how much misinformation about cannabis that I learned in health class. And then I started getting concerned about, are my kids going to be exposed to this? Will there be a health teacher at some point in their life who's feeding them misinformation about the cannabis plant? Will they be concerned about mom and dad and our jobs and, the medicine that we're providing in this world? And what's going to happen? And so at some point we're going to obviously, we're going to kind of have to head that off before anything like that is, before they're exposed to any kind of misinformation like that. And they're going to be exposed to it, but we really want them to hear it from mom and dad. But I think for me, it's going to be like almost everything else. It's going to come up organically. We're going to find the right moment organically as a family to really kind of discuss what's happened with the cannabis plant, the injustice, around communities of color. We'll get there. We're going to talk about it. We'll head it off before they're actually exposed to any kind of external information that's not aligned with truth. And we'll get there at some point. My guess is it will probably be around 9 years old, something like that. But we haven't approached it yet. And they're always free to ask questions, but because they're so tended by us, and they're so they're in the bubble of our home and our family right now because of how little they are. They're not exposed to anything that we're not exposing them to. And so it hasn't come up, and it won't for a while. And I think, we're very privileged to send them to private school. We're not sending them right now. They're home with us. But when they do go back to school, my thought process while I was in my car the other day is I was thinking, okay, well, maybe they'll bring us on as like guest speakers. Maybe we'll be able to come to the class and like actually talk about the real therapeutic benefits of cannabis. And maybe we'll be able to we'll actually be able to have like a parental roundtable where we discuss the truths about cannabis and the untruths and the injustices all together, with the students as a group and as a collective and a council, essentially. And so that's my ideal vision. I don't know how it will all play out, but we're in a very open community, the school that my children normally attend. So I think that there's a possibility that there's a potential for something like that to happen, especially this day and age. I mean, people from my family have called me up. Hey, can you talk to my teenager about cannabis? And this is the tipping point for our society. You know what I mean? We're there. We are at the tipping point now, where they're like, hey, can you talk about it just generally, can you talk about the benefits? Can you talk about the drawbacks of using it as a teenager? Can you just give an overall view? That way they have the truths of cannabis, and they can make their decision from an informed place. And so, we're already there, and I'm just hoping that that society as a whole can start to move in a more progressive way. And I know that we are. It just feels like there's a sense of urgency, especially because we're in a place now where so many people are making money from this particular plant, and so many people are moving in on this like green rush or whatever to make money, when there are still so many people incarcerated for cannabis usage and cannabis possession. It's insane. So, we want to move forward, but we want to move forward in the right ways. We want to make sure that that we are tending to the communities that have been harmed by the war on drugs. And as we move forward with cannabis knowledge and cannabis acceptance. It's so interesting how everybody's moving forward while there are still all of these people who cannot move forward, all of these communities, all of the trickle down effects to all of the people. It's not just the people who are incarcerated. It is everybody from their communities, the people from their families. It's everybody who's been affected by family members who have been incarcerated. And community members who have been incarcerated for cannabis possession. And so, obviously we want to move forward, but we want to move forward in the right ways.
First of all, thank you for sharing that with us. I know that there's still little, so that was like left field for you. Probably you're like, wait, I haven't even thought about that, but I think
thought about it a lot.
I feel like it's one thing, like, yeah, we are in this really great space where we're moving forward. But going back to what you're saying, the way that I view it is awesome. Sorry, this is going to come out really shitty, but wait, great. White people are making money off of this. What about everyone that's in jail, though? I can now go into a dispensary and buy what I need to buy, but someone for doing the exact same thing, just they were going to their dealer in their car or their home or whatever, they don't have health, they don't have freedom, they don't have basic human rights. And I feel like a lot of the conversations that it might be the universe bringing them to me, but I hear a lot of, women, they're just, I'm scared that if, my divorce, during my divorce, my husband finds out about my kids can be taken. Like, there's all these things that nobody talks about. And I'm just like, as someone that was on pharmaceuticals for a really long time, you can take Xanax that's prescribed by a doctor, that if you mix with alcohol, and I'm sorry to say a lot of people do this, you're really dangerous to your community because you can crash your car. You shouldn't be operating certain things, versus this beautiful plant that has so many incredible healing properties. You don't have the same. And I keep going back to, I have family in jail for possession and consumption. And it's a struggle for me because, again, I sit here and I get to say, yeah, it's totally cool and legal the way that I'm doing it, but what about you? And there's someone making money and you're still in jail. So I definitely still am a little pessimistic of how we're headed, because it scares me in the white privilege that we have in this country, how it's literally everywhere. And talking about this, again, it's medicine that doesn't even belong to anyone. It belongs to the earth.
It doesn't belong to anyone.
It doesn't belong to anyone. It belongs to the earth. And what you were saying, you can't regulate something you're not making in the lab. You can't say, hey, Mother Earth, you know what? This is too much. Can you take, like, it doesn't work that way. And I love your approach. The way that you're kind of bringing that up to your kids, and also it's so incredible that you're having family reach out to you so that you can talk to. That has
Absolutely.
to be like the best thing, because what you were saying about, a health teacher, it reminded me of my mom. She's now super open to it, and it was really funny because she still won't consume it. She does CBD all the time, but she's still kind of iffy about THC, and she was having a lot of pain. So I'm like, Mom, go to a dispensary, get some balm, make sure it has THC. It's going to help you a lot more. Am I going to get high? And I'm like, yes, Mom, I'm going to make you get high, even though you don't want to. Really? And I'm like, no, Mom, you're not going to get high. So she's using it, loving it. And now she's like telling all of her friends, oh my God, you need to use this lotion. It's amazing. Thank you for this. But her, when I was in high school, did not consume. And I'm very open about this. It wasn't what I wanted. I wanted uppers. That was my way of not dealing with my trauma. And cannabis made me feel, and I was like, nope, I don't want to feel, go away. Versus on the other spectrum, my brother, he didn't like to drink. So he started smoking at like 17. And I knew, but I didn't say anything because I didn't want my mom to, create all of this. And then when she found out, there was this little period of, no, you're not going to do anything with your life. And basically all the stuff she had heard, and it wasn't until he really started to have conversations with her. He was like, Mom, look at my grades. Look at everything. Can you honestly say that I'm changing? I'm not drinking. I'm not partying as much anymore. Like, I'm in a much more healthy place just with how I'm interacting in my day to day. And when they were able to have that conversation, she was a lot more open to it. And she was like, okay, all right. And not so quick to kind of make a judgment. But it's still, I started consuming consumption way into my adult life. But I remember like 3 years ago, I was flying with my grandpa from New Mexico to Colorado. My grandpa has dementia. So I'm like, I'm going to put a patch on. I'm not going to get stressed during this flight. Like, this is going to be the most peaceful flight of my life. When I got to Colorado, though, I just wanted to go to sleep. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to have a conversation or anything. My mom picks me up. How was the flight? It was good. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. So she starts talking to my grandpa. My brother texts me and he's like, are you in a bad mood? Mom is texting me, telling me that you're in a bad mood. I'm like, nah, dude, I'm off. Like, I just want to go to sleep. I put on 100 milligram patch and I'm just ready to go to sleep. And when I was able to have that conversation with her, and not just, again, it was, okay, not listening to what society is saying and actually just looking at what you're seeing right now. And when we had that conversation, I'm like, Mom, I'm not in a bad mood. I'm here. I'm listening to you. I'm just not talkative, which for me is not the norm, but I'm tired. I just want to sit here and not talk and not be part of society for a second.
Sure.
And she's in a point now where she's able to kind of look at it a lot more objectively and not so, oh, well, this is what I grew up thinking and hearing about the plant. And my stepdad consumes, and it's hilarious because I got a call probably a year ago and she was like, oh my God, he's always in a good mood. This is the best thing ever. Slowly but surely she's opening up. And it is that when we're able to have these conversations and not just what the media and what society has to say. And it is scary. Like, I still get people where they're like, oh my God, you're going to die. And I'm like, am I really going to die? Okay. All right. You say that. Cool. But there's a lot of misinformation. And if your kid's school did that, you need to like tell people so that can be like broadcasted, like, all right, Boulder schools in general are moving forward in the right direction, in the direction of education. That would be incredible.
Sure. And, it's just a vision. And obviously, they're not going to let us speak on the medicinal aspects of cannabis until we get behind this, or until we get beyond this barrier of um, not being able to actually talk about the medicinal aspects of cannabis. And so, it's a vision of hope, but it's not a reality. It's not a reality currently, but I'm hoping by the time my kids are in high school or in middle school and they're starting to learn about cannabis, that we can have these open conversations and we can actually start to talk about the benefits of cannabis as a community.
Definitely, definitely, definitely. So I touched on this earlier slightly, but with the Farm Bill being approved in 2018 and the rise of CBD, like we were talking about, I feel like there's a lot of consumers being taken advantage of. Like you can find CBD in the gas station, like it's literally everywhere. And I remember literally saying to someone once, I was like, how is this a thing? And their response was, well, beggars can't be choosers. And I wanted to kind of say, like, you're right, but no. What are your thoughts? Well, I don't agree with that statement. What are your thoughts on a consumer standpoint, because you were a consumer way before, and then as a business, what do you have to say to consumers? Because I feel like it's a lot. There's a lot going on right now, and as a consumer, there's a lot.
There is a lot. And I guess I would just say the exact same thing that I would say about any kind of products that you're putting on your body, putting in your body, any food that you're eating. Go to the source and educate yourselves, do the research yourself. There are so many brands, and so there are so many options to choose from, and there's so much misinformation out there that it is up to the consumer to educate themselves. It is up to the consumer to wade through the piles of misinformation. Part of what I really love about the cannabis industry, and I've been talking about this a lot lately, part of what I love about the cannabis industry is that it is putting the responsibility back into the hands of the consumer. It is bringing us back into a space of autonomy. When we go to our doctors and we ask them about cannabis, and the only information that they have is completely antiquated and outdated and untrue, we are looking to our communities, we're looking to our families for anecdotal evidence, we're looking to them to give us advice about what to take, what not to take. And this is the way we take our power back. This is the cannabis is a gateway drug. It's a gateway to medical autonomy. It's a gateway herb to your freedom. It's a lot of people who are taking CBD for the first time ever are now wondering what other plant therapeutics are helpful for me. What other kinds of ways can I show up for myself through plant medicines? How can I heal myself through plant medicines and natural practices? And so my advice to the consumer is to get clear on what you need. Listen to your own body, listen to your intuition, because we have everything within us that we need. We have everything within us that we need to know what's right for us and what's not. If we, through muscle testing or through intuitive, through deep listening and our intuition, we know what strains are good for us. We know what plants are good for us. Obviously, there's a learning curve too when it comes to plant medicines and safeties, but our intuition can tell us a lot, and our communities can tell us a lot. And the ways that we used to heal each other and the ways that we used to show up were through granny medicine traditions. Our community knew the plants. Our families knew the plants. Our elders, they knew the plants and they taught us. And so through cannabis, we are returning to that autonomy and to that independence and to reclaiming our power and our health from this modern medical system that we're in. And I would not call it a health system. It is not aligned with that currently, but we can return there. But this is one of the ways in which we return there through one aspect of plant medicine and plant healing that has been taboo or has a bunch of stigma around it, where people are asking their communities instead of so-called professionals. And so it's just educate yourself, do your own research, listen to your own inner guidance, and listen to your communities, and above all, do the research. There are a bunch of other aspects, like looking for certificates of analysis, looking for transparency within a company, finding a company that has single sourced organic cannabis, is all really important. But most of all, listening to yourself and listening to your own inner intuition, I think, is the biggest thing that cannabis can teach us, and the biggest thing that this cannabis movement can help us with.
I love what you just said. Like, literally, it is. You're right. It is a gateway drug back to autonomy for ourselves. It is. It so is. Because even if you go to someone and you're like, hey, what do you recommend? It's such a personal experience that you do need to trust. Like, it's reclaiming your trust instead of asking someone else. And I love that you're saying that. That's been something I'm like so passionate about, is being your own health advocate.
Yeah.
I agree. We don't have a health system. We have a money system.
Yeah.
And it's disempowering when you're constantly going to someone else to tell you what you need to do for yourself, when if you go back 500 years ago, nobody was going to someone and saying, hey, what do I do? You just, like, I still, when I burn myself, I put honey, because that's what my mom would do. Or she would give me olive oil and salt if I had a cough. I didn't grow up drinking like regular things. Or she made this really gross onion syrup.
Yeah. Onion syrup, of course.
Yeah. She's like, I was like, Mommy, I'm sick. Okay. I'm like, no, I don't want the syrup. I don't want the syrup. But yeah, no, it's such a, I think I'll say it personally. I forget. I thought that was just how everyone grew up. My mom being Hispanic, I was like, yeah, everyone is like this. And it wasn't until I started talking to people and I'm like, oh, you don't do that? Wait, that's weird. Why don't you do that?
I didn't learn about onion syrup until I was in my 20s. Seriously, we grew up deeply entrenched in the medical model. We grew up deeply entrenched in, this aspect of giving our power away. And I think that in certain societies, and particularly in the U.S., there are people who can afford healthcare, and there are people who cannot. And so people who cannot afford healthcare a lot of times will turn to those granny remedies, will be exposed to alternative healthcare practices, and that's on the right path. You know what I mean? Like, obviously we all want to be able to afford healthcare. We all want to be able to afford emergency medicine. We all want to be able to afford allopathic medicine when we need it. Community healthcare is so important, because once you get past the point where the herbs are working, then we need allopathic healthcare. We need the medical system. And we all need access to it, but there's almost the traditional remedies get lost get lost along the way when you can afford healthcare, and when for every little cough, you're headed to your doctor for some kind of antibiotic or whatever it is, and so we grew up on Robitussin and that kind of stuff. All the traditional um, allopathic medicines that are out there on the shelves currently. I didn't have that in my family, and that is something that I've had to return to. And it's been a really amazing journey. And I'm definitely doing my best to instill that in my children and my daughters, all of that wisdom, and specifically wisdom and traditions from my maternal bloodline, from my ancestors. And so, kind of just being on this journey has been really amazing and really helped me kind of return to my roots. And it's an interesting path.
That's so awesome. What and going back now, what brought you into herbalism in the first place?
Good
I'm
question.
like so intrigued as to from all of kind of your childhood to that, because and I'm totally I'm jumping off. This is me just like totally reading you right now, but I feel like you're okay. I need to like word this because it's not saying that not everyone belongs to the planet. We all belong to the planet, but I feel like there's some people that are just more connected, and you have this like, I just feel like you were born like, yeah, there's just
I
this
know what
like
you're saying.
huge mother earth energy coming from you, which you literally told me before we started recording.
It's very true. And I think it is definitely like a past life, an ancestral, through some journeying that I've done, some psychedelic journeying and spiritual journeying. I know that in my ancestral roots that there are many, many healers in my ancestral roots who have worked with the plants, and who have worked not only with cannabis but with psychedelics as well, and just with plant medicine. I mean, that's what we did. That's what all cultures did. That's what we did before we had pharmaceuticals. That's what we did. And so almost everybody has that in their lineage. But based on the journey that I have done, my knowledge and the reason that I am who I am and why I'm here is to bring back whatever kind of herbalist traditions were in my family in the past. And so it's a part of my it's a big part of why I'm here, essentially. And so we'll see in the end how it has all played out. But the first time I even got a taste of herbal medicine, I was on it like that. I didn't start my formal journey with education around herbalism until I was in my 20s, but I started studying herbalism when I was in my teens. I would say I was probably 16, 17. I had a really good friend who had a single dad. A woman came into his life and she became kind of a mentor to me. She was my best friend's stepmom, and she was really into herbalism, homesteading, and natural practices. And so that was my first taste of like homesteading, growing plants, growing medicinal plants and using medicinal plants. And, as soon as I was turned on to those aspects of life, I really started diving in heavily, and this is something that I also really like to tell any listeners who are out there. If you're interested in plant medicine, if you're interested in herbalism, don't think that you need to go to a school for it. The plants are for everyone. I started studying plant medicine when I was in my teens. I started checking books out from the library. I started borrowing books from this woman, and I started learning on my own. I was very interested, and it was like coming home. Honestly, it was really like, oh, this is exactly what I'm here for. And for a short period of time, I really lost my way, thinking that I was going to go through school as a nutritionist, and I'm from the Midwest. And when I was there and studying the nutrition program that was available to me there, it was not resonating at all. It was, it was all outdated knowledge around nutrition, and so I thought to myself, well, okay, this path isn't for me. This path isn't for me. And fast forward, I'm out here in Colorado. I start studying herbalism and nutrition formally, and from a holistic place.
Okay.
Essentially. So I'm at the Colorado School of Clinical Herbalism. It was formerly called something else. And they group the nutrition classes with the herbalism classes. So you're studying nutrition and herbalism at the same time. And it was holistic nutrition. It was true nutrition, and not the like food pyramid. And you know what I mean? So it's been a journey. It's been amazing, but I did get my first taste of herbalism, and my interest was piqued initially in my like mid-teens, through exposure through a friend's stepmom who was a mentor to me for many years, and that really set me on my journey. But I would say probably I was going to find it one way or another. It was because it's truly what I'm here for. And so it was going to find me. I was going to find it. So one way or another, this was happening.
I feel it in you. There's just like, it's ironic because I didn't even bring this up earlier, and now it's 444 as I'm about to say this. Your face shifted slightly when you were talking earlier, and I had this like glimpse of this like medicine woman, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's this like medicine woman bringing us back to our, I don't know, like it was just this moment of, I'm like I left this realm and I was just like, wait, come back, don't leave, woman, don't leave. So it's in you. It's, God, I can't pinpoint it. I'm glad that you brought up that it is in your lineage and in like ancestrally it's there, but it just oozes out of you. And
I would say ancestrally, it's there for all of us. We just have to return. We have to return to the connection to nature and the connection to our true selves and who we are when we're living in alignment with the earth and with the best practices for humanity. I would say that it's within all of us. I think that some people have more of an affinity for plants than other people do, more of an affinity for like healthcare than other people do, but it's in all of our lineage. It's there for all of us. I would say some people are more like some people are maybe more open to the messages of the plants and are maybe it's more heavily, their lineage has been more heavily steeped in healthcare. You know how some people are like musicians, and in their lineage they have a ton of musicians, and it's just part of who they are. It's a part of their DNA. I would say that plant medicine is a part of my DNA for sure.
it's so interesting that you're saying this. I have like deeply resonated with this like African woman all of my life. And anytime that I would say something, my family would be like, dude, you're as white as can be. Shut up. You're like offending people. So there was a lot of shame around this for me because I'm like, no, I just, there's this woman, I feel like she's in me. And my grandpa, who, God, I love him. He has dementia, so he's not fully here. We're talking a few months ago, and I don't know why, felt like called to share this with him. And he's like, oh yeah, you know that my dad is Black. Wait, what? Yeah. And you know that his dad is Native American. And it just started to like all fall into place. I'm like, oh my God, I wasn't just saying something. It is there. So what you're saying is true. We all know deeply within us when we're called to something. And I feel like there's a lot of, you need to study this and you need to do this. And if you're genuinely called to it, just follow that passion and see where it leads you. It might lead you into something beautiful like Moon Mother has for you, or it, you know, it could go somewhere completely different. But I think it's important to honor those passions that we can't always explain to everyone, but we feel called to. And it's so beautiful that at 16, you know, they were able to gift you such a great mentor to kind of guide you home, like you were mentioning, which is really beautiful.
Absolutely.
So we're heading into the end of the interview. I want to ask you, we talked a little bit about this, but I want to kind of go back to it. So you were saying that it was a blessing, all the trauma in your childhood. And I kind of want to, for everyone, I feel like a lot of people, we've all experienced some little T, big T, like we've all experienced some sort of trauma. And I never want to say, hey, yours is invalid. I think everyone's pain at the end of the day is pain, and doesn't matter what the situation and circumstances were. But last year, we as a collective felt it. It wasn't like individually. It was like as a collective, we couldn't look elsewhere. It was like, all right, we have to acknowledge this. And I am a huge believer that we are never getting more than we need. And it is a gift. It might not be a gift at that moment, but later on, you're going to be able to see what gift it was. And I kind of want to hear that process for you, how you were able to kind of realize that, because I feel like when there's a lot of inner child stuff, it's easier to not honor it and kind of dismiss it. Like, I love my mom, she's a Libra, and I laugh when I say this, but we were talking about trauma. She's like, I don't have trauma. And I look at her and I'm like, Mom, I love you. Your mom died when you were 9. Your dad like totally lost his way because his wife and youngest daughter died in a car accident that he was driving. And you lost your sister when you were 15. And you had me when you were 18, but you had no trauma. And to her, it's not trauma because she's like, I wouldn't have you. And I like, she views it completely as a blessing. But I still think we need to acknowledge, like, yeah, the pain was there. In order to see the gift, you need to recognize the pain and process it in whatever way, you know, works for you. But how was that for you? How did that kind of, like, when were you able to realize that it all helped you be the woman that you are?
I mean, it's been a really long journey, and it's hard to tell exactly when, like pinpoint the exact moment when I started to really look on all experiences as being a gift, whether they were tough experiences or joyful experiences or just flat. But I think I think probably mid 20s. So in my early 20s, I started to see a healer here in Colorado. And that's what I was telling you about. I was really diving into my trauma and really shifting the trauma. And one of the ways that you can, if you have the access to this type of healing, if you have if you have the privilege of coming across being exposed to any kind of modality that shifts trauma into healing and shifts trauma into potential power, it's almost more, you know what I mean? There's almost more to you than these are lessons. Like these were experiences that brought me knowledge, that brought me deep understanding of the way that people are, and the amount of pain that people can feel. And as a healer in this world, someone who's working not only to heal people on a physical level, but also on an emotional level, you need to be able to come from a place where you understand trauma and true pain. And I can't, like I said, I can't pinpoint that exact moment, but I know that that it ties in with my place in this world as a healer. It ties in with my place as an herbalist, and as a true friend and community member. And so I would just say that I can't pinpoint the exact moment, but it was around that time. It was around the first few years when I really started shifting my trauma and really started owning my own power, where I felt that the trauma was actually, once I shifted it, it was giving me more skills. It was giving me more of a presence. It was giving me more of an ability to actually show up in the world, because I had come from a place of pain. I had come from a place of wild traumatic experiences in my youth, and so I was coming from a place of experience, essentially.
I am speaking out of my ass right now with what I'm about to say, but I think that your experiences, and I don't know enough, definitely have colored your role as a mother.
Exactly.
And whenever you feel like it's the time and place, definitely, share whatever you want to with them, because one of the biggest things that I've been very grateful for my mom is she's always been super transparent about all of her experiences and adventures, whether, it resulted in a positive or negative, whatever outcome. It just, I'm really grateful for that. When we were younger, it was more of like, what do you think I should do? What do you think you should do? I've given you like stories. You need to make your own decision. And it's something that I'm really grateful for. And I know that it wasn't easy for her sharing a lot of her own stories. And I just wanted to kind of share that with you. Like, whenever, I feel like there's a lot in there. You're going to be teaching them a lot with that. So
Absolutely. And I think so for me, as someone who had to grow up really quickly, it's very important for me to protect their youth. But at age appropriate times, I will certainly be sharing with them my experience, and in ways that I feel will be helpful to them. And I won't hold back. I won't hold back, but I also am, I'm not eager to share it with them until they're ready, until they're in a place where they can actually hold it and not be afraid, because kids they're resilient, but they're fragile too.
no, thank you. Thank you for acknowledging that, that protection of innocence. I love my parents dearly. They were really young when they had me, and they had no sense of, oh, you're a little kid, I can't just share this with you. Like,
Of course.
I say this again with love to both of them, but I'm like, I was my dad's best friend, and I was two. I couldn't be your best friend. I was a child. There was conversations we should not have had. So like, it's really, I think it's beautiful that you're able to kind of see from your own experience, and then show up as you know, how it feels most nourishing for you, which is such a beautiful thing. Thank you for sharing that with us. Well, before we end, everyone on the series knows that I love to cosmically profile everyone. And I asked you this when we talked on the phone earlier. But what's your sun sign? And then if you know your moon and rising, that'd be awesome.
I do. My sun sign, I am a Libra. I have a Scorpio moon, and I have an Aquarius rising.
Man, I like really want to know 3 years from now. I'm just going to check and be like, Jessa, what happened during Aquarius season? I literally want to know because, whoa. And then what's your husband, if you don't mind me asking?
I really only know that he is a Leo.
Okay, so it vibes well with you. What about your daughters?
My daughters, I haven't done their charts yet because I don't want to kind of have these like preconceived notions of them, and then like imprint that on them. But and then I'm also very curious about their charts because I want to know how to best like, you know, hold them and best hold space for them. But I know myself, and I'll have all these like thoughts about who they are as people.
That Scorpio moon, baby.
Exactly. But my daughter, Juniper, who's the older one, is a Leo, and my youngest daughter is a Taurus.
Ooh, man, you got a lot of fire in that household.
We do. We have a lot of fire in the house.
But the good thing is your Libra-ness. I mean, no, I feel like your younger daughter being a Taurus will definitely ground everyone. But then also you being a Libra, you're just gonna. My brother's an Aries. My stepdad's a Scorpio, and he is a Scorpio to a T. Like when he's in it, I love talking to him. When he's like trying to not own his Scorpioness, I'm like, I can't be around you. Like, you know.
Sure.
But
Sure.
I love it. And my mom, I feel like I'm like her biggest mirror of everything she denies within herself. And her and my brother are way much more alike, which is very just odd. But when you really get down to it, you realize we're one and the same. And my brother's like, you're so impulsive. You don't think things through. I'm like, no, I do. I think things through. To me, maybe not to you, but to me, they're thought through. And my stepdad being a Scorpio, he's like, walk me through this. Explain to me why you're doing this. Like he really wants to get it. And I'm just like, just let me run. I just want to run. I'm ready to go. So I think that's beautiful. No, it is. There's this kind of cross between looking at people's charts. My mom, so my grandma, which is my mom's mom, is my spiritual guide and gives me all the information when I want it. The one thing she has not given me yet is my mom's birth date. And since she doesn't know what it is, like her time, I haven't been able to like pull up in a like full on chart. And every time that I'm like curious about it, she's like, no, I know you. I know what you're going to do. Stop. Get out of it. Like, get out of it. Get out of your own way. Yeah. Well, Jess, thank you so, so much for joining us on the journey within. It was great chatting with you, hearing your story. I can't wait to kind of catch up and see where you are, where the girls are at, where like Moon Mother is in a few years. I know that your thing is never to be this like big mainstream thing, but I can just see it evolving more. Like, I don't know why. I feel like there's just something, like there's something, I don't even think I just keep feeling, I'm like, there's something she's working on that I don't even think she knows she's working on yet. But yeah, there's like something coming out. There's strong energy brewing in you. And I can just, 3 years from now.
There's more to come. I'm working on a few other projects that are a little bit bigger than Moon Mother. And I say that because there's more healing. I mean, obviously Moon Mother is bringing a ton of healing, but we're talking about traumatic healing, disconnection, etc. And so, I do have some things brewing, but they're long-term goals. And so I'm looking forward to sharing with you when they come to fruition.
Excited to learn more whenever you're ready. Well, thank you so much. I hope you have an incredible evening.
Thank you too.
And
Thank you for having me on. I so appreciate it.
oh, it was my pleasure. It was so much fun chatting with you guys. And then actually real quick, since this is airing on Valentine's Day, you guys just came out with some really awesome products, which I'll let you do a little plug right now because I think this is perfect. Guys, V-Day plans. Jessica's going to give you the perfect V-Day plans. Jessica's like, what? I don't even know if I have V-Day plans, but here
I
you
have
go.
no idea. I have no idea what the V-Day plans are, but we did just come out with a CBD intimacy oil that is so amazing and so nourishing and nurturing. It's not just an intimacy oil. It's not just to be used in an intimate setting or a sensual setting by yourself or with a partner, but it's also specifically herbally formulated for vaginal health. And so this oil is to be used, you can use it daily for vaginal health and just for tending and caring for your yoni or your vagina or however you want to refer to it. But I think as a woman in the healthcare industry and someone who is very focused on women's health, it has been a it's been hard for me to watch women who are so disconnected from their own body. And so this is a way for us to get into the hearts and minds of women across the world and get them to pay a bit more attention to their yonis and get them to pay more attention to their entire bodies and get more in touch.
I love that. I love that. And I think that's Valentine's Day is the perfect day to get to know yourself a little bit more, to explore
Absolutely.
and get in touch with yourself and kind of bring a gap between that disconnection. So
Grab your intimacy oil, do a little bit of mirror gazing with your vagina, check yourself out, see yourself, get to know yourself a little bit more, and get in touch with that amazing power source within your body.
man, well, I think I just discovered what my Valentine's Day plans are going to be. So I will keep you guys updated on this.
Here, you know where to find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure chatting with you. And guys, I will see you again next week. Make sure to drop any comments that you have. If we didn't answer them during the interview, I will do my best to answer your comments. And if I can't, I will reach out to the experts and have them answered for you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you guys for joining. Guys, have a beautiful, beautiful, wait, this is going to air on Sunday. So have an incredible Sunday. This just shows that I have no idea what day it is. And enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye.